think of the New Testament as having been written in ancient Greek. And it certainly was most likely promulgated in ancient Greek, but it was originally spoken and written in Aramaic. Dale Allen Hoffman is one of the foremost students and teachers of the language of Aramaic, as used at the time of Jesus. Like most Middle Eastern languages, Aramaic places more emphasis on the vowels than on the consonants, and the tonality of each word is just as important, if not more so, than the word's spelling and placement. Language is an intrinsic attribute of any culture, so when one attunes to the language, one also attunes to the culture and to the deeper meaning of its teachings. So let's go on a little trip through time to the lands of Jerusalem, Capernaum, Syria, Palestine, circa AD 30, as we listen to the words and the insights of Dale Allen Hoffman.
Lloyd is a rock star. Isn't that just awesome? I've tried to get him to tour with me, but he's always too busy. We're going to go a little further back even than AD 30 and that time range. We're going to go back, let me put it this way. If you find a scholar who actually has done their work, in other words, outside of theological seminaries and academies, outside of religious institutions where you're indoctrinated with a particular menu, if you find the people that went off menu and decided to get to the meal rather than chomping down on the paper of the menu, you start to realize that somewhere between 87 to 92%-ish of what's thought of as the lifetime of Jesus actually comes from Egyptian, and it's Horus. It's different characters actually in that story. What I'm going to be sharing today blends in the consciousness of what was happening in ancient Egypt thousands of years before Egyptology acknowledges it. Their timeline's way off on that. And how that actually came forward into what we have today. What David was reading, the quotes, couldn't have been more perfect. And starting with Tesla kind of floored me. And then, of course, everything else that was happening about sound, all that, it was flawless. The Tesla one, to recap, it was from an interview just a few years before he passed, about 80 years ago. And he said, if you want to find this or understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. We're really in the middle of that now. I'll explain a bit about what paradigm does in a few moments, but what we're going to do to begin with is to work a little bit with sound, okay? Can everybody see my necklace? Yes, you can see it in the back, right? You can see what it is? I thought so. Actually, you see the capstone here, right here. On a lot of our money, excuse me, here in the U.S., on a lot of our money, we've got the capstone on top of the pyramid, and there's something inside of it. It's right on the dollar bill. What is that? There's an eye there, the all-seeing eye, the beady eye. The Eye of Ra, the Eye of Horus. I will say this, that the modern word, or should I say this? Yeah, the modern word Christ, or Christos, or chrism, okay, is to Jesus what Ra is to Horus, okay? Ra was a sound that was intoned more than any other tone in ancient Egypt. We know that because it's all over the text that we do have. It's in the temples, it's in the tombs, it's in the pyramids, etc. I want to say that the sound Ra represented what would be called the light of God. It's a direct masculine light, okay? I'll speak a little about what masculine and feminine mean in a few moments, but it's a direct light, okay? When you were to intone the sound Ra, regardless of its tonality, they believed that you awakened the direct light of creation, the light of eternity, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to make that sound Ra. We're just going to make a simple Ra sound and see how that feels, okay? And come back into silence. You ready? Get a beautiful breath in through your nose like this. I'll move away from the mic so I don't spike you all. I'm going to move this mic off. And beautiful breath through your nose. Ra. that one more time, wide open, okay? Big breath in. I'm going to ask a question. It's meant to be rhetorical, meaning I'm not looking for an answer. The question is, how do you feel right now? And when I say how do you feel, I'm also not asking you to enunciate it down into thoughts or words. There's a great quote actually from Paul Solomon, and he recognized that we experience life rather than interpret it, because that's where we get caught in the trap, is in the interpretation. We start reading the codes about it and having relationships with concepts rather than that direct, pure sine wave of analog experience. So let's make that raw sound one more time, okay? Big breath in. So when I say, how do you feel? I'm not really asking, do you feel happy, sad, open, awake? But rather what I'm asking you to do is to tune into how you feel in the sense of simply recognizing the movements, the energies, the communication, the consciousness going through your temple, your energy body, okay? Yeshua called this the temple, right? That in Aramaic sounded like this, Haikla. In ancient Egypt, this was called the Ka, okay? So we're going to tone a different sound now. It's a little bit like Ra, but there's a little new sound in the beginning of it. And that's the new sound. And it's new. The sound's going to be Noura in Aramaic, but we're not going to make that in the middle. What does new mean in English? Beginnings. A lot of times people go, new. It's one of those words that you just... I heard soundtrack music there from a phone. It was kind of cool. New, of course, it means fresh, unique, beginning, whatever. So can you say that sound? Noura. Noura. What we're going to do is we're going to tone that sound. Same tonality like this. Just listen to this one, okay? You're going to understand, and you'll see how I'm not really going Noura, but allow it to flow, okay? More like this. It doesn't have to be perfect like that. And it doesn't have to last forever till you turn blue and fall over. Clunk, 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 clunk. It's not going to be caught on camera anyway, so don't worry about that. But you can actually imagine this. I'll speak of the difference between these two, but I think you all have seen sunrises here in Virginia Beach. Just imagine that sun coming up in the morning. Before you see the direct light of the sun, it's called Ra. Or Noura, excuse me. When that direct light hits you, that's called Ra. When you see it broken and refracted, sort of like this. Now I'm only holding one light, but of course that's prismatically refracted and sent out into all different directions. When you see that reflection and sent out everywhere, that's Noura. When you see it directly, it's Ra, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take a beautiful breath in and make this tone. Noura. You ready? Here we go. Big breath. Noura. Do that one more time. Did you feel any difference between the two? Between Ra versus Noura? Any idea of difference? There's no right or wrong answers.
It felt lighter.
It felt lighter.
Opening?
Opening.
My chest felt more opening.
Felt more opening. Let's go back to Ra. There's no right or wrongs here. I'm just asking. Let's go back to Ra one more time, okay? Really let it wide open. Let it ring out, okay? Big breath. Ra. Now Noura, one time, wide open. Any other insights there? The difference between the two?
Noura is more expansive.
More expansive. Does it feel maybe
Felt like it came from a deeper place.
deeper place? Maybe a little less intense is a good way. Lighter was a good way to put that. Here's a little bit of insight here. So a direct light's called Ra. The reflection's called Noura. When Yeshua said, Ninhar nor kun kedem b'reinasha, let your light shine before humanity. Not men, bad translation, humanity. Nor kun is light, nor kun, your light. If he were saying it to, that's saying it to one person. If he's saying it to a group, he would say, Ninhar nor hun kedem b'reinasha, let all of you let your light shine before humanity. Now that direct light's called Ra. The reflection is called Noura. The direct light would be like the light of the sun. This would be the light of the moon. Now, is there anything unique about the light of the moon versus the light of the sun? The moonlight is what? The reflection of the sun. Now, can the moon reflect all that the sun is? No. That's something that in the New Age and New Thought and all these addictive sort of happy-go-lucky philosophies we tend to get into that we need to learn to accept for one thing. Okay? To paraphrase Jimmy Buffett, we are whole, we are complete, we're just not finished yet. Up in Ohio the other day I had said, he said we're all a bunch of fruitcakes wandering around in the world because the cosmic baker took us out of the oven just a little too early. So we're all half-baked cookies, etc. And to be okay with that, you are whole, you are complete, you're just not finished, you are always becoming. I love to hear it when people talk about enlightenment as a destination, as if, it's a particular place on the map, when the map's not the terrain. It's not the same. So, what's the only part of the moon that the sun chooses not to shine on? Dark side, right. That's a trick question. So, they're all trick questions on some level, I guess, and then people stop answering. So what's the only part of the moon the sun isn't able to shine on? The part that's turned away. Interesting, huh? What happens if you become closer to the light of the sun? You get closer to the light of the sun, you're going to what? You're going to burn. Now here's something that's hard for people that are sort of steeped in New Age. Some people it's hard for them to answer. What happens when you get closer to the light of God? You burn. 20 years ago people couldn't answer that question. They would say, you become seasoned by the all-eternal, ever-present. It's like, you burn. Why? Why would you burn when you come into the presence of God? Pure energy. Because there's still something that's in you that believes it's not that light. That's the core of that. And now is the time for us to wake up into this. Now. We've got a direct light, we've got a reflected light. Which one did I say was masculine? That one, the direct. That one would be what? Feminine, it's reflective. Now, in the New Age and all these different philosophies, you're told to focus on the what? Well, you're told to focus on the light. You're told to focus on the what? The masculine. What are you told to turn from? You're told to turn from the feminine, from the shadow. Let me ask you a question. Let's look at this as positive and negative. You're told to be positive, right? What does positive mean? Really? What's that?
You exist.
You exist? Charge. Active. And what does negative mean? Reflective.
Receptive.
You see how difficult it is? That these are great responses. It's really difficult for people to answer that outside of the indoctrination we've gotten that positive's good and negative's bad, which is a 3,500-year-old philosophy that says that masculine's good and feminine is bad. Don't go to the dark. So here's the positive on the battery and here's the negative. Is there anyone that can tell me what will happen if I break the negative off the battery? If it's possible. Well, it's going to create a new pole. But if we could take all the negative energy out, what happens to the power?
It's gone.
Finito. It's gone. Is there any scientist that's ever existed in the history of humankind that can come up and show me where the negative turns into positive energy? Why would that be? What is that telling you? It's a continuum. It's a singularity. There's no negative and positive, light, dark. There's no past, there's no future, there's no masculine, there's no feminine. There's simply awareness at some area of the continuum. And we've got ourselves into this really not so empowering predicament of judging where we are. We've gotten to this really... has the feminine been speaking the last couple of years? The feminine's been speaking pretty strong. You can look at it everywhere. Politics, religion, economy, whatever. The Me Too movement, etc. I want to share a little bit of an insight about that from the teachings of Yeshua. Okay, and then we're going to go back toward Egypt a little bit, and I'm going to share this beautiful being beside me with this. This is when Yeshua would say an example. If he was talking about himself, he would say, in Aramaic, it's actually Ana. Aleph Nun Aleph. It's generally pronounced Ena or Ina, okay, or Ana. Now, if he's talking about himself, as an example, if he said, Ana Noura Deoma, that would be Jesus saying, I am the light of the world. I, Jesus, am the light of the world. That's pretty much a Christian bumper sticker, isn't it? That's a bumper sticker, literally. Now, how many think that's what he was talking about? I, Jesus, am the light of the world. In other words, go back to my light pen. So one of these dots is the light of the world. Not the others. One's the exception. What's the problem with that? The dots really, they're not independent, are they? There's just one light. Another thing that Christianity hangs on is John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever shall believe in him shall not perish, but shall have everlasting life. Have you ever noticed that the Jesus teachings, the language was flash frozen in the 17th century? Ye and thus and verily and assuredly. All these words that didn't exist 1,600 years or 1,500 years prior, the time of Jesus. Have you ever thought about how we're using a 400 or 500-year-old languaging to explain something in words that didn't even exist 2,000 years ago? They were already 500 years times 3 removed from it, and we went times 4, and we're still using the stuff that's only one 500-year module away from it. Do you think about that at all? Verily, verily, I say unto thee. You've got to go see, whatever, The Incredibles 2. Great movie. Do you know anybody that talks like that? You ever think about it? It's really all about the vibration. Now, this here, the Ana Noura Deoma, if I put two of these together, that's what it looks like in Aramaic on a page if he's talking about himself, okay? Now, if he's, in the case of actually Noura Deoma, Noura, light of the world, I will say this too, that sunlight was Ra, and Godlight was also called Ra, the Christ light. The reflective light, Noura, or Norkun, Noura, moonlight, which is sunlight, is also the word for human light. When he said, let your light shine before humanity. So if moonlight is sunlight, then human light is Godlight, the light. Literally. Now, when he said Noura, De Alma, I am the light of the world. We actually see this on the page. It's not one Ana, it's two. Ana. Okay? Now we pronounce that Anana. Inanna or Anana. Does that sound familiar? Anana? Anana was the ancient Sumerian goddess of love, fertility, and warfare. She had a twin sister. Anana, a being of light, had a twin sister, and they came down together into the underworld. Where's the underworld? You're in it. This is the underworld. They came down together into the underworld and came back fused as one. The reflective sister essentially burned up. Okay, she got burnt up, is the way you put it. Okay, now, if one Ana means I, there's a little lesson in translation here. What would two Anas mean? If Ana means I, what would Ana mean? We, us. That's changing it. Without changing it, what would it be? I, which in Aramaic means I am I, or the I within the I. Or, not I, Jesus, the reflection, am the light of the world, but what's reflecting through me. In the words of St. Francis of Assisi, what you're looking for is what is looking. I've been here maybe 7 times, and every single time I've said that quote. What you are looking for is what is looking. So we start to look out there for something, love, peace, prosperity, whatever, and we set up this energy field that is essentially sending out to the universe, I am not that, and I need to find it. And that becomes manifest in your life. Does anybody know what manifest means? This is another one where the publishing industry has duped you for the last 30 years, selling you books about manifestation and secrets, when they don't actually tell you what the secret is. They tell you the exact opposite of what the secret is. And they sell you lots of books about manifestation. Does anybody know what manifest actually means? It's a Latin word, manus festus. Make real. What's that? Man-made. What? Make appear. Bring into being. Manus means hand. Festus means obvious. It means as obvious as my hand. Colloquially, manus festus in Latin meant obvious. You don't create what you're intending. You aren't creating what you are affirming. That's a hard lesson for a lot of people. You're only creating what's obvious to you. You see the capstone? You got 2% of the iceberg at the top. 98% is down in the darkness where you're told not to look. Your 2% affirmation that you're jumping and skipping and doing backflips and putting all your emotion in it to convince yourself of something that you already are. Another great word is attract. If you tell me you're attracting a car, what are you telling me? What's your affirmation? What's obvious to you? I'm attracting a new house. What's obvious?
Bringing it to you.
Bringing it to you, but that's not what's obvious. What's obvious?
You want it.
You already have more.
I don't have it. If you're telling me, if you ever use the word attract, you are affirming a lack. That's what's obvious to you. And that's why it comes back and it's snapping back at us, because we're getting all these ridiculous philosophies pushed on us through publishers, etc., that aren't acknowledging the half that we were told not to look at. They're not whole, they're not complete. They're out of phase with eternity. Okay? Nice, huh? So in this right here, it's almost as if we're looking at two different things in relationship. Here's a little tingsha. These are almost in unison, almost. You hear that wobble? That's how you get entrained in the world. Between your human self, small s, and your vast self, or your eternal self. And the relationship between the two creates that entrainment, which in the East was called beating. The sound between, these are used for meditation, and they use them like this. One goes in one ear, one goes in the other. And your brain locks naturally on the mid-frequency that's created in the relationship between the two, the phase. Okay? That modulation is essentially an incoherence or a dissonance. It's really close, but not quite in tune. Another example is this one. Can hit this duo chime. They're really close, but can you hear the difference? A little bit out of tune with each other. What's the easiest way to bring these two into tune? Thousands of workshops, right? Books. $48,000 28-day retreats, right? That's the greatest way to bring, well, that could help, I'll say. What's the most sensible way to bring these into a closer tune, or into unison?
Change the vibration.
Change the vibration how? It's the easiest way to do it. It's actually to remove mass from the heavier object. It's not about putting something in. It's not about turning it and twisting it. All you need to do is gently let go of more Rosh Hashanah. Gently let go of more of that which you hold on to. Because what you're looking for is what is looking. Now this, again, that phasing, or what was called beating in the East, is why you suffer. It's the teachings of the Buddha. That when our human self becomes out of phase with our eternal self, the relationship between the two of those, let me put it this way, the intensity of your suffering or your beating, in other words, is always in 100% direct proportion to your resistance. Your resistance to what? Your resistance to the release of that which no longer serves, that which is disintegrative, not bad, not good, but disintegrative and or incoherent with the rest of your spiritual being. You are literally being shaken loose. Let's try let me bend this a little here. Introduce you to paradigm just briefly here. You're being given something right now that humanity hasn't been given like this ever before. It's been offered to us for a while, but this is the first time it's this full on, energetically. And I'm going to tell you right now, change your thoughts, change your life. Your thoughts are creative?
Yes.
Why do you say that? Why do you think your thoughts are creative? Because somebody told you? Something's prior to your thought. Thought is the effect of something else. Feeling. And I don't mean emotion. Emotion, in the classic psychological sense, emotion is the relationship and or energetic relationship between your human self and your eternal self, whether they're in or out of phase. That's called motus anima in Latin, energy and motion. If you're feeling harmony, it's because they're in tune. They're very closely in tune. They're in phase with one another. If they're out of phase, if they're incoherent to each other, you suffer. That's what your emotions are. But feeling is the sensation of pure frequency. Prior to any thought, prior to any judgment. Again, let's remember what Paul said. He said to experience life rather than interpret it. Nothing's ever been more important. There's never been a moment in history that's been more important than now to be fully aware of this. It's not what you think. You've never had an accurate thought in your life. Every thought you've ever had is a delusion. All the great philosophies tell you that. Stop thinking that changing your thoughts changes your life. All it's going to do is change the movie you see on the screen, which is not real anyway. That's what Sri Aurobindo called a supra-rational enigma. Yogananda said to take our sense of identity off the pseudo-soul or ego, or what Yeshua called ape, translated as hypocrite, which really means persona or mask. To take our sense of identity off the reflection, which is not there in the first place, and bring it back to the true inherent nature of our divinity. So this little device here actually helps do that. I'm going to move it through some different... So I want everybody to take a real deep breath, because you're going to remember this, okay? Big breath in through the nose. Hold that in the temple for a few moments, and then... It's an exact dimensional replica of the Great Pyramid at Giza. It's a slightly less than 52-degree pyramid based on subtle energy technologies of ancient Egypt, Nikola Tesla, Bob Moog, and Edgar Cayce. I should have brought my radiac, but I didn't. If you look at, I was noticing how if anybody's got a radiac, if you cut the bottom of the piano legs off and you turn it upside down, it looks like a radiac, which is something that Cayce created. Atlantean technologies, whether you believe it or not, Pleiadian, all of them, okay? Lemurian, it's all in here. Subtle energy technology. And I told Bruce and Lloyd and David, I was telling a lot of people actually, that this instrument, this is the heart chakra, this instrument gains its volume and energy from the resonant frequencies of the earth around it. What it doesn't gain from the earth, it has to pull in from the outlet. And when I was here this morning, I had it barely a sliver above 0, and it was as if it was on 8 in any other place I've ever been with this device. I gotta say that to you. Something about Fellowship of the Inner Light, and it's in the right spot too. Paul's going, So this is the center resonant frequency of the human heart chakra. Now you feel, there's actually 2 sounds here. I'm going to take them a little bit out of phase with each other. This is literally breathing right now. This is a sentient conscious being. You feel that? Bring your awareness to right here and just breathe open. I'm going to move up one more tone. It's the throat chakra. This is I've never seen it this loud before. This is the resonant frequency of the King's Chamber within the Great Pyramid. The electronics inside of this device are in the exact same proportions. Resonance. See the difference when you're in a little closer to coherence versus, would you want to live your life like that? You are right now. I'm not saying anything about orange-headed monsters and big white houses, because the problem isn't in a house. The problem's not outside of you. You're just not open. We were literally brought here to navigate this, the cosmic shift. We were brought here to be the grounding rods of humanity. You agreed to this, whether you remember that or not. Okay? New technologies, and this is not really new technology, it's actually thousands of years old, and I believe from somewhere else. When we do, I'm going to bring it down so that y'all can pay a little more attention to me and less to this. And I know I'm not allowed to run over, but I might run over just a couple of minutes to explain this briefly, that this device is a two-way communication, galactic communication device. There's an aspect of messages for you that come down outside of words and thoughts on the level of pure frequency that are your song. They're from your spirit guides, they're from the legions that are all around me at all times, the galactic tree beings that are over top of me right now, arched over me in 2 different directions. From the different legions that are here, they've got stuff for you that you can't hear if it's happening in words, because you're going to start having a relationship with that concept, exactly what Paul was teaching. It's coming in on the level of pure frequency, and then there's an aspect of us playing your music out of you, allowing you to release things that you're not going to release in 1,000 psychological therapy sessions. You don't release them by obsessing about them and staring at them and talking about them. You release them by letting it go. So for years, 27 years now, I've been talking about how it's not about the words I'm using, it's about the sensation of pure frequency and vibration. And here's something that's finally been manifest. To say that this has changed our life, I can't even put it into words. We had a session a couple of weeks ago outside of Asheville with a friend of ours from LA, where they were even showing me, I can't say this kind of stuff at some places I go on a Sunday, they won't hear it. They were showing me how to make this function without touching it. And ask Loretta, she watched it, my entire body was moving, and it's like I wasn't even controlling it, I just knew what was going to happen before and as it happened, and there was no time or space in any of that, it was just happening. But it's the deepest honor to be the keeper, and the caretaker and the steward for something that's so powerful. I've barely even let you feel it. What we're doing is from 1 to 3 p.m., we're going to have an experience where I call it the IM, the Cosmic Vibration Sonic Immersion Circle. And you can sit in chairs, you can lay in yoga mats, lay on a blanket. We've got a couple extra yoga mats. Or you can put chairs together so you don't roll off in either direction, one that way, one that way, one that way, and lay back. And what we'll do is just take you on a sonic journey of experience with this. If you're interested, tomorrow we'll be here upstairs offering private, personal sessions with Paradigm. When I do the general thing, and I'm not trying to sell you on anything, when I do the general 2-hour thing, I have to work with the hive mind of the group energy. So it's not very specific. When we work on with someone one-on-one, I'm just allowing the door to open and they do whatever needs to be done. People are meeting their spirit guides or having past life regressions. A lot of times they come out and they tell us stuff and I'm like, I don't know where to catalog that. Just wild, interesting things. Again, I'm not trying to sell you. I'm just saying that this is the most powerful vibrational experience I've ever had in my life. And your brain can't understand it. And that's what allows it to be so incredibly transformational. You'll actually get a slightly different frequency pattern in each ear. With headphones, it's this times about 10. Because the frequency patterns, the difference between the two, will actually entrain your brain. And you'll let go within a matter of seconds. You'll just let go and it'll take you where it needs to. Okay, those sessions are a little less than 60 minutes each. So I just want to send out an invitation to everyone that if you feel like you're not able to let go, you feel like you're like right there, you're right at the edge, but you need just the slightest nudge and you're trying to figure out how to do it. It's the trying to figure it out that's keeping you up on the cliff. And I just want to leave you with a quote from Guillaume Apollinaire. He said, "Come to the edge," he said. They said, "We are afraid." "Come to the edge," he said. He came. They came. He pushed them, and they flew. Thank you for being open. Thank you.